Good morning, everyone. We're going to start a little bit after 9, so we're going to wait to let some more people join. So if you could just sit tight until then, that'd be great. Thanks.
I don't understand why they would do that for new construction, but
Hello, everyone. Thanks again for joining us today. We're going to wait a couple more minutes if everyone just wants to sit tight until then.
Good morning, everyone. Hey, thanks for joining us. And my name is Steve Smith, CEO of Intertek. And presenting with me today is Carly Fletcher and Jeremy Vonderhaar. And first, I'm going to start by prefacing that this will be my first geosolar webinar that I've done. And thank goodness for Carly and Jeremy helping me. We are still a family operated business, and our son Kyle was supposed to do this morning, and our granddaughter was just born at 4:15, so we're having quite a morning here. So I'm going to cover and fill in, do the best I can. We have got a lot of people signed up on this webinar, and thank you for joining. We've got every lower province. We've got BC all the way to Newfoundland, and we've got Washington all the way to New York. So we've got quite a lot of states and a lot of provinces. So again, thank you for joining. And we want to talk about getting the most out of the webinar here. And be sure and take notes. And again, I'll do my best to cover this. Also, I will beg any forgiveness for some of my if I have not experienced as you think I should be on the solar, but definitely the passion is here. So I'm intimidated by the list on the webinar because there's a lot of talent out there, and I got a lot of friends. So none of you can email me back or call me or text me and rib me about anything. So there. So it is a great opportunity to get some questions answered, and so we will. Please submit your questions, and we'll get to them at the very end or towards the end. So let's go ahead and get started. Sorry, I'm getting there. Okay, so overview of how solar and geothermal work together, financial breakdown. We'll discuss net zero and also off-grid living, steps of performance, how solar works, and future products. So, where energy and technology meet. Basically, that's where the name Intertek came from, energy technologies. That's when Ken and I started Intertek in 1996, and that's where the name came from. Never thought I'd be talking about tying solar with geothermal, but what had happened when we lost the tax credit in the U.S. in 2017? I had looked into ways to tie solar thermal to the loop to bring tax credits back partially to geothermal, and that was pretty unsuccessful. We just were not getting cooperation we needed. There weren't that many vendors in that part of it, and even though we knew quite a bit about PV solar, we were looking to tie the solar thermal into the loop side, which doesn't really help for the southern states, but for all northern states and Canada, it was a great option. So anyway, as we continued on, it got us into the PV. So with the introduction of solar, we're able to offer homeowners the route to net zero or to possibly off the grid. And the idea is that the concept is that we're not, we really never fought solar. We've always tried to convince people that geothermal is, better than solar if they had to make a choice. But in today's world, why make a choice? Why not bring them both together? So the first thing to do is to have a well-insulated home. We've always looked at these steps. When you put in a geothermal system, the first thing you do is have the home insulated as well, or building is insulated as well as possible, to bring down the size of the equipment, to bring down the installed cost, to bring down your operating cost. But that also holds the same for solar. With solar, we still want to go in those steps. We want to insulate the home well. We want to put geothermal in to keep the solar load down as low as possible and tie them and marry them together. So, thanks to federal, state, and province incentives, it's really never been easier. So, kind of a financial breakdown, the payoff with both. On the solar side, we've got the 30% residential U.S. tax credit and 10% commercial. I'm not sure on provinces what incentives are available there. We've got state REC credits, renewable energy, solar renewable energy credits, and they're available in select states, not every state, and some offer their own tax credits as well. But there's incentives that you need to know in your own state or province what is available. Very important. Installation costs are pretty consistent for the most part. I mean, there's going to be a range per watt installed, but fairly consistent. And you've got net metering in a lot of utilities offer net metering. Net metering basically allows you to bank solar generated kilowatt hours that you generate during the day and use them later in the month or the year. And again, all utilities are different, investor-owned utilities are different, electric co-ops are different. So that's something you want to look into, and we can help you with that. With geothermal, we've got 30 to 70% savings on heating and cooling. We've got hot water savings, 25 to 40%. We've got the tax credits back right now. Installation costs are inconsistent, and it's usually inconsistent simply because of the region. Greenville here is located in southern Illinois. The drilling is fairly easy for vertical installations. And you go to other states or provinces, and it costs 2 to 3 times as much to get that vertical bore completed. So again, a little inconsistent there overall. The next step is why sell solar? There's an ever increasing public demand. Okay, but you can also switch new or existing customers over from gas to electricity. It's pretty hard to be green and put solar up with a gas furnace. That's not where I think the world is going. So again, converting and generating your own electricity to power a geothermal system makes the most sense to what I think the consumers are after. But it does open new and old doors. We see it being able to go back to every geothermal installation you've installed and go back and see if they have an interest in putting solar in. Or everywhere the solar's been put in, geothermal is the perfect way to get them to net zero or possibly if they want to go as far as off the grid. So how do we get started? Well, we've got training available at our Greenville dealer meeting April 30th to May 2nd. We also have a New York dealer meeting in May as well. And so we've got the training and the tour, and we do recommend to first install it in a friend's or family members or your own shop. We're doing the same thing right now, and to actually get some experience behind you. So what is net zero? Net zero is basically that you're able to generate as much electricity as you use with PV solar. And so if I'm just going to use some examples here, just kind of off the cuff. But down here, if we put in a 10 kW solar PV array, and we tie it with geothermal, let's say that we've got a 4-ton system, and it's going to use 7,000 kilowatt hours a year for heating and cooling, just kind of off the cuff. The solar panel, when Jeremy or Carly run the analysis, that 10 kW solar array will generate 12 to 14,000 kilowatt hours. So let's just say 13,000. So I can cover my full heating and cooling load with the solar to my geothermal, and I've got 6,000 kilowatt hours that I can use for monthly living. Now that's only 500 kilowatt hours a month, so that won't quite get you to net zero, but it gets you very close. It wouldn't take much more in solar panels to get you to net zero. So in other words, then you're going to generate as many kilowatt hours as you consume in the home or the business, but you don't use it all at the same time. So that's basically net zero. Off the grid is what they say about me around here a lot of times, that I'm totally gone off the grid, but that's only mentally. Off the grid means that you are no longer connected to a utility. Net zero, you will be connected. in net zero, the utility still has to have the ability to generate power for you should you not be on any kind of backup or solar. Okay, so it leaves the utilities with a little, an issue that they have to provide the power there. Off the grid, you are completely separate from the utility line, and you are basically self-generating in power and completely disconnected from the utility side. So steps for energy efficient homes, okay? First off, I mentioned earlier, let's get the home insulated the best possible way we can. In new construction, naturally we should be using foam, closed cell foam, or secondly open cell foam or cellulose insulation, and insulating the homes very well. Then we size the geothermal to that load, depending on where you're at, and then naturally the solar to power that, and depending on how much else you want to install as well. And batteries are coming. That is the fourth step. That's kind of towards the future. That could allow you to be more off the grid or to be more net zero. That technology is moving pretty quickly. I am not up to date on it, up to speed to talk intelligently about it, but it is coming. I do know that in the last couple of years that Tesla built a new huge plant outside of Reno, Nevada, and nothing but for batteries. And my question to our customers out there was, I'm like, they need that many batteries, for the cars they're building? And they said, no, that's the majority are not going into cars. They're for storing power and other uses. So again, that technology is coming. So how does solar work? Earlier on, I mentioned solar thermal, and then brought us around to solar PV. And so photovoltaic systems are generating basically electricity. So the panels will convert the sunlight to electricity, and then the inverters will take it from DC to AC. And the way I look at geothermal is, I guess solar panels are for daylight power generation, and the geothermal is your midnight solar. It's going to heat and cool your home 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, night or day, rain or shine. And the solar is going to generate power during the day for you. The amount of electricity is measured in kilowatts or kW. Many times it's broken down by watt, how much per watt installed, but it is based off a kilowatt or kilowatt hour as far as actual consumption. But kW is the amount they can generate, and then the kilowatt hour is the actual power it produces. But it's the power rating of the system, orientation of the systems, basically the angle, the pitch, the compass, all that will make a difference. But it should be about it says basically the orientation should be about the same degree as your latitude. Okay, and you also got to watch for shading, and that's something that Jeremy and Carly can help you with. Naturally, south facing is better, but in this process, it's been a big learning curve for me, and I've learned a lot about east, west versus south, and how much you lose, and it's some really cool stuff. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jeremy and Carly.
Good morning, everyone. So my name is Jeremy von Aurora, and I'm going to start touching on the different components, or give kind of a 101 course into the major components behind a solar system. So first off, we have the inverters for the system itself. So we'll look at, there's basically two different types, micro and single inverters. So for a micro inverter, the inverters that we sell are going to be a 1-to-2 ratio for the solar system. So basically we'll have one micro inverter for every 2 panels. So each of those 2 panels is going to be feeding their DC current into that microinverter, which is going to go ahead and transfer that into an AC current that we can use for the home right there on the spot. So then the other types that we work with are called string inverters. Now these are typically for our ground mount systems as well as large commercial systems. And these are inverters that the entire or one array will be tied to one inverter, and it'll all feed into that inverter itself. So there's a little bit of difference between the two in that microinverters are typically more flexible. So for an array that we have up on a house, say one part of that array gets shaded, that won't bring down the whole array itself. The other panels that aren't shaded are still be producing power and converting that into AC current through the microinverters. Whereas with a single inverter system, if part of it gets shaded, then that can cut off that chain and that single inversion line and kind of cut off power for it then. So then getting into the types of panels themselves, so there is 3 different types of panels. Starting off, we have premium monocrystalline silicon panels, which are the ones that we sell, going down into the standard multi-crystalline silicone or poly. And then we also have economy thin firm cell. So the premium are typically going to be your most efficient and kind of degrading in efficiency from there. Okay, so now we're looking at some rooftop setups. So here on the left, you can see some railing, or what we like to refer to as racking on a roof. So this is the railing that we'll go ahead and set up and lay the panels onto and mount it to. And then on the right-hand side, you can see what it'll actually look like once the panels are set up. So for the panels that we work with, will typically either be what we refer to as a 72 cell or a 60 cell panel. So the 72 cell are typically going to be a little bit longer. I believe they are 40 inches wide by about 78.3 inches long, whereas the 60 cell are 40 inches wide by 65.5 inches long. So here on the right, you can see some black on black panel style, which is typical for some home or residences up on the roof, and those are going to be the smaller 60 cell. So here looking at a commercial rooftop setup, so for a lot of the commercial jobs, a lot of the rooftops will be flat. And like Steve mentioned earlier, we want to try to get the orientation or angle on the panels close to what your latitude is. So since we're on a flat rooftop, you can see that we have them orientated and up at a tilt. And for flat roofs like this, typically for a lot of commercial ones, they're on a rubber rooftop, so you don't want to be drilling in. So what you see these panels laying on this slide are basically just weighted down, and that's pretty common for a lot of the different commercial jobs. So looking at ground mounts now, there's basically 2 different types of ground mounts. We have standard ground mounts and pole mounts. So these ground mounts are typically good for homeowners or businesses that don't have a suitable roof. Maybe the roof's completely shaded off or a little bit funky to try to get panels up onto. So then we'll start looking at being able to set them up with a ground mount setup. So for ground mounts, we're a little bit more flexible in playing with the orientation. We can really get to that latitude tilt that we're looking to be at. And these are typically going to be cheaper, but then again, you do have to find a place in your yard or around the business to set them up at.
Hi everyone, my name is Carly Fletcher. So designing this process is very easy, it's very simple, and I know you guys can do it. First, you have to gather all the information. We need the address, the roof type, energy usage, as well as the 12 months of utility. This is really important. We want to, for the retrofit of it, we have to determine how much energy is used in the house. So after we get all that, we'll calculate it, and then that will come up with how much energy is needed for the system to be at 100%. So we use a software called Aurora systems, and this will put the layout out. It will tell us how much energy will be used, what the kilowatts and everything are, and then after that, we'll create a list of materials to order, and then we'll ship them to wherever they need to be. This is a design tool, Aurora. It shows us where the sun hits, how much heat is actually getting on each panel, as well as a 3D layout for all the shading and for all of the core information that will be needed for designing appropriately.
Okay, thank you, Carly and Jeremy. So again, I mentioned our dealer meetings coming up. In Greenville, it's April 30th, is the solar training in the afternoon of April 30th, and then the dealer meeting May 1st and 2nd. And in Cato, New York, May 16th through 17th, and I believe the afternoon of the 16th is the solar training, and then the meeting on the 17th. So we welcome you to attend either one, and we encourage you to do so. As I mentioned, coming into the webinar here, we have never really looked at solar as being competition, but we always felt that, well, if you got to choose one or the other, choose geothermal, because that's what we do naturally. But it is becoming more popular. It is something that consumers are asking for, and your millennials and Gen Xers are more concerned about the environment than us baby boomers. I should say more about the environment, more green or off the grid or net zero, more so than say us baby boomers. But we're serving a wide market, again, from boomers to millennials, and it's consumer demand. So I urge you to look into it. I guess I'm becoming quite a fan of it, only for the fact is that when people want it and it makes sense, it goes hand in hand with geothermal. It doesn't have to be one or the other. And in some states, the REC credits are very, very high, and covers between the tax credit and the REC credits can cover 3/4 or better, or close to it, of a 10 kW solar array. For example, in back in Nevada, it's kind of in the middle of nowhere, Nevada, a school district put up, I forget how many kW of solar panels, and then backed it up with geothermal. So they went from oil and basically from fossil fuels and buying electricity and no air conditioning to all solar, powering the geothermal and giving them air conditioning. And it's state-of-the-art for a very small school district that made a lot of sense. So with that, I encourage you to look into solar and add it to your portfolio with your geothermal, or geothermal to your solar portfolio, and get signed up for our Greenville meeting in April and May 1st and 2nd, April 30th to May 2nd, in Cato, New York, May 16th and 17th. So with that, do we have questions?
Yes, we do. So our first question is, what brand of microinverter are you going to be selling?
Well, that would be a Jeremy or a Carly question.
Yeah, so right now we're currently offering, it's called an AP Systems microinverter. I believe it's the AP 500i, I believe, as far as micro inverters is what we're offering. And then for the string inverters, we're offering a Ferronius brand.
Okay, and then also I guess I can say this too. We're trying to purchase U.S.-made solar panels, so Mission is one we've been pushing on?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So all our 72 cell panels will be Mission.
And once again, if you guys have any other questions, please feel free to submit them and we can get them answered. We'll stay on for a couple more minutes if you guys have any other questions.
And if you don't, again, we thank you for joining us, taking the time. If there's a question you'd like to ask, you just don't want to do it online, or you'd rather give us a call or email us directly, that's fine. We got Jeremy's and Carly's there. Mine is steve.smith or kyle.smith for questions. And like I say, feel free to get hold of us.
If they'd like to register for the event, they can contact me.
Okay, and also contact Mallory Phoney. It's mallory.fohne to sign up for the dealer meetings, or you can get hold of Terry Allen, TERI.ALLEN. Again, all of them at intertekgeo.com, or the phone number there. So with that, no other questions?
I do not have any questions.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for attending our webinar today. We appreciate your time.
Thanks, everyone.